Hello and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. How have you been? We've had a busy couple of weeks around here at my house. The weather right now is sort of warm but really windy, and it's made for some interesting walks and stuff because my dog, who is a corgi and relatively low to the ground, doesn't really like the wind, and it's been howling a little bit lately. So we've been doing our best to put up with the windy conditions. But we've had a couple birthdays in our house the last couple of weeks. My husband's first in January and then mine a couple days later. So we've had a lot of things to celebrate and enjoy. And I have a couple of gifts that I'd like to share with you, things that I got for my birthday that I'll be sharing with you throughout the episode. The first thing I wanted to let you know, though, is that I finished my Bergman sweater and I'm wearing it. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. Why don't I just get up and show you what it looks like? Ta-da! It's finished. I started this sweater on the 1st of January. It was my New Year's Day cast on. After a really impulse buy of getting the yarn on Boxing Day when a local to me yarn store, Statement Junkie, had a Boxing Day sale. So I took advantage and I purchased some yarn for this sweater. It was the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. I have used the sweater once before and I really enjoyed using it. It's a nice kind of lofty yarn, really pleasant to knit with. And also the colors available in this yarn are really lovely. So I cast on, and I have to say it was a really quick knit. I finished on the 17th, I believe, of January. So it took me just over 2 weeks to knit this sweater. Worsted weight sweaters. Who knew? I have not been... Sorry, my dog is just chewing on a sweet potato to keep him occupied, to keep him from barking at me. So I hope you can't hear him too much. But fiber is good for everybody. Anyway, I have not been in the habit of knitting a lot of worsted weight sweaters, partly because in my head I think of them as being really warm. And this one is quite cozy, but also I had the feeling that it would feel bulky on me. I have knit in the past some chunky weight sweaters and even heavier weight sweaters, and I do not reach for them. I think because of that feeling of added bulk, particularly here, it just doesn't feel good on me, and it's not what I reach for. But this one, it's got a really lovely drape. I don't feel like it's adding a lot of bulk. It is warmer, but having said all that, I really like this sweater. And I think it just reinforced for me that on my person, I really like stranded colorwork yoke. I just really like the way that looks. And I don't know if it's because of how it kind of frames your face. This one's quite a graphic one, but I really enjoyed the sweater. I know some people have moved where they put the short rows. This sweater has short rows at the top so that you can see it raises the neckline, but what it does is creates more of this darker color in the back, which makes it uneven from front to back. That does not bother me in the least, but some people don't like that. And if you don't like that, don't let that be the reason you don't knit this sweater. You can always move the short rows, and lots of people have done it. Oftentimes what happens is they'll knit the colorwork straight from the ribbing and then move the short rows to just below the colorwork. That is totally fine. It's a completely established way of adding height to the back of your sweater. And so if you don't like it here, you can add it here, or you can not add it at all. It's totally up to you. Did I make any adjustments to this sweater? One, I think. I made the body slightly longer. Caitlin Hunter, I made two. I made the body slightly longer because I wanted this sweater to hit me below my hips. I think that the pattern is written for maybe a couple inches less, so it might hit me here, and that's okay. I just prefer it a little bit cropped or a little longer, and I was aiming for the top of my hip bones, which are right here. So I think I did a pretty good job. So that's one thing. I added length here. Excuse me. The other thing I did was Caitlin has some decreases in the chart, in the pattern right before you work the bottom chart, this bottom chart here. I omitted those, which, like, I think I didn't want it to be really sucky in here. I probably could have had those, and this sweater would have sat maybe a bit more like that, like a little bit more clingy at the bottom, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it being a little bit loose at the bottom. I think it looks good. It doesn't hang funny or anything. So those are the two things I did. I made the body longer by maybe an inch or two, and then I didn't do all of the decreases that she recommends before the colorwork pattern at the bottom. I did do a couple of decreases only so that I had the right number of stitches to work the colorwork at the bottom. Yeah, this is my Bergman sweater. I used less yarn than I thought I would. The Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino is a 50-gram ball, and I think it's 125 meters in each ball. So I used, I had very little left of this dark blue color, which is called whale or blue whale. So I used just under 3 for the size that I knit, which I think was a 44 inch. And then for this pearl gray, which is my main color, I used just under 5 skeins. And that's including like the extension that I did for the body. It's entirely possible that I did not knit the sleeves as long as is recommended, because if you've watched this show before, you will probably know that I have short arms. But I'm quite happy with the length of the sleeves. This one is bulging because I have a watch underneath, but I think it's really nice. A lot of people are knitting this right now, and I've seen a lot of people knitting the contrast color or all of this beautiful color work in something like a color shifting yarn, like maybe a hand spun, or Spin Cycle has Dream State, which is a worsted weight, and those look absolutely beautiful too. I've also seen people knit this and just do a little like ribbing right here and make it a short sleeve to make it suit what works for you, and I think they look great too. Where I live, having long sleeves and cozy sweaters is really ideal, and this one I think I'm going to be wearing quite a bit for the rest of this winter. It is cozy and I'm really happy with it. So that's the Bergman sweater. I have a couple more finished objects that I'd like to share with you, and not all of them were made by me. So as I said, I had a birthday. I'm 1 year off of a really big birthday. So I just turned 49. So in 1 more year, it will be a bigger one, and maybe we'll have some celebrations here on the channel if we make it that far. But my sister, who is younger than me and was a cross stitcher from an early age, like when she was in junior high school, she was making really large, beautiful cross stitch patterns. So she's been a stitcher for a long time. And a couple years ago, for my birthday, she made me a cross stitch, which is a pattern by Junebug and Darlin, and it was made for Isolde Teague. I'll insert a picture here, and it says knitter. And so she made that one for me, and now for my birthday this year, she made me another one, which I think is adorable. It says no problema, and it has an adorable llama. And what I really like the these are little French knots, if you can see, but also these little tassels on the blanket are just adorable. So this is going to be going up on my wall of stitching, I guess, soon. I just need to find the right spot for it. But I'll also show you a picture of the one that she made me last year or the year before. So this is a cute little stitchery done by my sister. It is cross stitch, definitely. And she's very good. Can confirm. So then I also finished my own cross stitch. You may remember I've been deep into mystery solving. So this is the 4th room in the mystery series by Diana Waters. And I picked it up, I want to say after Christmas. And when I had this time off and a bit of a lull, and I just loved working on it. It was really, really fun. This is Kiki's Kitchen, which is the 4th room in this series. And last time, I think I was telling you how excited I was about the clues that I found in this kitchen. So the way that this works is it's 5 rooms like this that are each decorated by one of 5 roommates living in a house. And there's a mystery to solve. I'm pretty sure it's a murder. And let me show you the clues that I found in this room. So initially I thought it was this bloody tea towel, which I was delighted by in a very macabre way. But yeah, like it's a murder mystery. Who doesn't love like a little bit of a bloody trail in a very like delicate and cross-stitched way? But the other thing that I discovered was over here in the mug cabinet, if I can draw your attention over here, this little pink mug is not a mug. All the other ones have handles, and this one does not, because it is a candlestick taken from this room over here, which I think is the murder weapon. So follow me as I continue to try and solve this mystery. I only have 1 room left. There are a couple of little portraits of the people who designed, of the roommates, that I don't have yet because they're not out yet, but I'm suspecting that maybe they're part of the solution to this mystery. So I'm going to take a little break from stitching, or from doing cross stitch anyway, but when I come back to it, you better believe I'm going to be hot on the trail of figuring out the solution to this mystery. So in the last couple of weeks, I finished up the rug, or the flooring, I guess. Most of it, like from here up, had been finished the last time you saw it. And then I gave it a soak. I blocked it, which just means when you're doing cross stitch, I wash my cross stitch the same way that I wash a finished piece of knitting. So I just have some warm water. I put a bit of the same soap that I would use for my knitting. So in this case, I used some silk, I think, but I've also used Eucalan, either one. And I give it a bit of a wash, and then I take it out, I dry it, I roll it up in a towel, squidge out as much water as I can, and then I block it on the hoop that I mean to frame it on. Then I just trim off some of the excess. I cinch in the back, and then I put a little bit of white felt on the back of it. So this one, I just trace out the inside of the smaller hoop, cut that out, and then I just stitch it on. And for this one, I've been writing, this is room number 4, it's Kiki's Kitchen, and when I finished it. So again, this is the 4th in a series, and I plan on hanging them on that wall just over there. So I will show you when they're all hung up and I've completely solved the mystery. But as you can see, I come from a long line of people who finished their stitchery. My sister used a different stitch pattern. I used a blanket stitch this time, but I've certainly done this too. And both of these are going to get hung up in my office here at some point. This one is just waiting for the last room, which is Saffron's studio. And I have thoughts, but I won't share those with you until I'm all done. So I think I have a bit of a confession to make. At the end of last year, I was kind of done with knitting socks, and I thought I'd be moving on to different projects. So I did some embroidery, I made this sweater, I've been doing some other things, but socks are following me. I cannot get away from the socks. So at the very end of last year, just after Christmas, my daughter asked me if she would make her some stripey socks, and I said sure. So we came into my office and we had a look at my stash, which just lives right over here beside these books. See these books here? If you just go over a bit, that's where my stash is. So she picked a couple colors, and this is what she chose, some pink and some gray. And so I knit up some stripy socks. And if you remember last time I showed you how I do my jogless join to make sure that the stripes are as sort of even as possible. And actually, so this is the side where the stripe is, and I can feel it because there is that little bit of, my sock is wet because I took pictures of it in the snow. There's that little bit of the yarn coming, being carried up. So the whole point of jogless joins is not cutting your yarn every time, but carrying your yarn up the inside, and then trying to make sure that that join is even, and it's not too bad. See, if no one's gonna be this close to her feet in an ideal world. So if you look back here, I think that those stripes are pretty good, but let's look at the side that isn't wet from being in the snow. Apparently I can't get away from it. Yeah, so these are just some stripy socks that I made for my older daughter as requested, and I guess now she can have them. These I used some Knit Pick Stroll in the Dogwood Heather colorway because that was the pink that she chose, and I had quite a bit of it. And then I also used West Yorkshire Spinners in the Dusty Miller colorway, and that's this pale gray. And so these, just some very simple socks off to my daughter. I'm hoping to order some more Knit Pick Stroll. I really like having their yarn in stash. It's great for colorwork projects, and it seems to be that I've been making a lot of colorwork kind of socks lately. So maybe I'll order some more when they restock. They don't have much in stock right now. I've also completed my January Colorwork Cuff Club socks. The Colorwork Cuff Club, as many of you know, is a sort of club put out by Summer Lee. It started in August, and you pay one price and you get a basic sock pattern, and then every month you get at least one colorwork chart to be worked on the cuff of a sock, and then the rest of the sock can usually be just knitted plain. Sometimes the pattern can be carried through the entire sock, but in most cases it's just around the cuff, and then you can carry on knitting your plain knitting in a relaxed manner. I cast on these last weekend when I was on a trip to Jasper. Jasper is a mountain town located in Jasper National Park, which is a beautiful national park in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta and bordering on BC. So I was there to celebrate Ukrainian New Year. My daughter is a Ukrainian dancer, and she was having her first performance with her new group. So she was very excited to have this opportunity to dance and perform, and I was really happy to have an opportunity to see her. So I drove down with a couple of friends, very fortunately for me, which meant that I had 4 hours on the way there and 4 hours on the way back of just relaxed knitting. I had only taken 2.25 millimeter needles to work these socks, which is my preferred size and type of needle for knitting socks. When I got to the color work, I remembered why I don't like doing color work on DPNs. So when you have DPNs, you get funny corners, and I think that this also happens a little bit on Magic Loop as well. Where the needles meet, and for Magic Loop it would be where the cables kind of meet, you can get a bit of a spot where the yarns aren't evenly pulled like this. They may have to like jump, and so you can get funny pulling of the yarn. So I did my best, and I thought, well, hopefully it'll block out, and it did, but it just reinforced to me why the 9-inch circular, which I am a new convert to, is really ideal for knitting color work. So these are them blocked out, and as you can see, all of those little floats that I had, they did block out really nicely, but I was trying to be very careful to make sure that I was stretching my knitting, to make sure that I didn't have any weird puckering because of the different needles that I was using. So I think I will be trying to use the 2.25 or 2.5 millimeter 9-inch circs just for color work, if nothing else. So these are my January Cuff Club socks. And I used, again, some Knit Pick Stroll. This is horchata, this really beautiful, lovely, pale peachy pink. This bright pink is a yaw wool that I used probably in my August socks, the flowery ones. I'll pop a picture somewhere here so you can see. And in fact, this color is kind of similar to the color I used in those socks too. And this one is also a Knit Pick Stroll. It is called Outlaw. And I do plan on stocking up on my Knit Pick Stroll again once they get more in stock. It's just a really nice yarn to have for color work, and I can use less than 150-gram ball usually for the main color of my socks. And then whatever's left over makes really nice accent colors or contrast colors for other socks. So these are my January socks. I did block them, as I said, just to make sure that all of my floats would be okay. And they are, but I think I would just prefer to knit my socks on 9-inch circs when it comes to the color work section. And then I switch back to my preferred DPNs once the color work is done, and I work the rest of the sock like I normally do. And that is all of my finished objects for this week, but I have been working on a couple things. Let me show you the first thing that I've been working on. I finally cast on my Seaglass Cardigan. I really, really liked this pattern when it came out. And I had reservations because I really thought that for me, the knitting of this cardigan would be much more enjoyable if I knitted in the round, which meant adding steeks. For those of you who don't know, the Seaglass Cardigan is not steeked as written. It uses a different technique to deal with the ends, which makes them tidy, and it works them in without having to weave them in. But I have steeked before, and I will steek again. And I just thought that it seemed like a much better approach to at least the knitting of this. I didn't want to have to knit and purl, work back and forth. I just wanted to be able to knit in the round without worrying. Now, the one thing I was a little bit concerned with is all of those ends. So I did a little research, and I went to my library, which is in this cupboard here. Oops, this cupboard here, and a little bit over here. For those of you who don't know, I did the Master Knitter program through the Knitting Guild of America, and I completed that in 2014. It's been a while. But as a part of that program, I purchased a lot of reference books. Some of them I would just get from my local library, some things I looked up online, but some books I found really useful to have. And one of the books that I have found to be very useful for me is this one. This is Alice Starmore's book of Fair Isle Knitting. Now, Alice Starmore is an expert in Fair Isle knitting, not just the historical patterns and color work charts that were used in Fair Isle. She was a great collector of those, but also the techniques used in Fair Isle knitting, and steeking is one of those techniques. Now, I had a look at this book because it addresses a lot of the things that some other books don't really talk about. And that is, what do you do with your ends when you're knitting a whole big Fair Isle sweater? And so this is Alice's advice. When working knitted steeks, note that the color changes for new rounds should take place at the center of the steek. Perfect, I did that, Alice, thank you. That is, on the 5th stitch, as shown in the illustration. The colors are changed at the center of the steek so that the yarn ends will fall at the opening when the steek is cut, and thus will not need to be sewn in separately. Aha! Thank you, Alice. That's exactly what I needed to know. She goes on to talk a little bit about what to do with the raw edges and how to sort of finish your steek. But having said all of this, I'm very confident that I don't need to weave in my ends, at least on the main body of the sweater. The sleeves are going to be another kettle of fish. And I will be referring to Alice to see what she suggests for that. I may be employing a technique where you just weave in your ends as you go. And if I do that, or whatever I do, I'll be sharing it with you. I've been trying to put together little bits of a video so that I can show you how I've how I have addressed, how I have approached this project in terms of adding the steek in. And I'll be sharing that with you all when I have completed that video. But along the way, these are my thoughts. So for right now, this is my sweater. And it is going actually really quite quickly. I'm using this creamy color, which is Jolineknitsalot, which I love and would love for a local yarn store to carry, please. This is the white pepper color. That's translated from the French. Poivre blanc. I did not say that very well. Anyway, this is a beautiful yarn. It's made in France. This is the sport weight version. It is a lovely hand. I have knit sweaters out of it before and I adore them. So I'm using that as the main color. The Seaglass Cardigan series really has two options. You can either use alternating colors constantly, or you can use one main color and then alternate the other one. And that's the option that I chose. So as you can see, I have knit past the underarms, just a little bit past the underarms. And I have a couple of, sleeves on hold. And I'm getting ready, I think, to start knitting the sleeves. This is how I usually knit my top-down sweaters, this one included. I will cast on from the top down. I will work a bunch. I'll get past the armhole, and then I'll start knitting the sleeves. Now, as you can see, right now, I have been knitting away, knit, and all of this is matching because it's striping. But now that I've got to this sleeve, the conundrum was, do I either follow the same color patterning that I was doing for the body, or do I just go rogue and do whatever color I want? I think my plan is just to use the same patterning stripes. And it's not, I have been mixing it up. What I have is a bag of leftover sport weight woolen, like woolly wool yarns. And I have just been, every time I start knitting, I will line up the yarns. So I line up all of my contrast colors, and I just make an order that kind of appeals to me, and I work through that whole order so that I don't have to think about it as I'm knitting. I just grab the next one that I lined up and I keep going. Once I've worked through all of those yarns, I just start again. And that's been working really well. I have, apparently when I purchased the yarn for this project, I did get a full ball of a red yarn in this same colorway, this same yarn, the Jolineknitsalot. And so I have been using the red more than once per sort of cycle. And it kind of does make a nice pop of color, but I think it is what it is. So I've been trying to use the red because I have a lot of it, and so I try and use it more often. But having said all that, I'm just gonna keep trucking along. So I think I'm going to be starting the first sleeve soon, and I will knit that whole sleeve. The pattern recommends to knit a 16.5-inch sleeve and then do a 4-inch cuff, 4.5-inch cuff. That is ridiculous for these. My arms are not that long, and that is just too much knitting. So I think my plan is to knit about a 14-inch sleeve and then do a 4-inch cuff, and that will allow me to double up the cuff without covering up a bunch of the color work. Because what is the point of that? If I knit a 16.5-inch sleeve, that's nearly the length that my sleeve would need to be without the ribbing. And so once I fold back the ribbing, I'd be hiding all of this color work that I worked on. So I've decided not to do that. I'll knit about a 14-inch sleeve, and then I will knit a hardy cuff, and that will allow me to roll the cuff back, but still not lose any of that color work that is the whole point of the sweater. So I'm going to do my 2 sleeves next, and then I'll be working on the body. And I'm just going to keep knitting the body, I think, until I've nearly run out of yarns. This sweater is quite long. I believe she says to knit about 16 inches from the armhole down, and then add another 2 inches of ribbing, which is a fairly long sweater. I think I'll be measuring some of my other cardigans that I've made that are longer, but maybe not that long. And I'll see about how long I'd like to knit mine before adding the ribbing. I have a feeling it'll be about 14 inches plus 2 inches of ribbing, but I'll let that be a game day decision. It's also going to depend how much of the contrast yarns I have left, because as I work through them, it could be that I have less and less yarns, stripes. And so if it's starting to look very monochromatic, because I only have so many left, I may just have to make a shorter sweater and not quite so long as this one is. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So the Seaglass Cardigan. I'll just tell you a couple things. The reason that this looks quite bunchy up in the front is that I've got, I cast on the number of stitches required for this is the front, the sleeve, and then you can see this is the end of the sleeve, and then all of this is the back. So you can see it's not even for sure. And then I've got another sleeve to here, and then the other front. Now the reason this looks so bunchy to the front is that I've got a steek here. I added 5 stitches to make the steek instead of following the pattern. So I used their stitch numbers to cast on, and I've used all of the increase and shaping instructions as is written in the pattern, but I have 5 steek stitches down the center, and that is this white one, and then a contrast one, another white one, a contrast one, and this white one. You won't see those when the sweater's done. This is on the outside of these white stitches is where I'll be picking up my ribbing for the button band. And this white stitch down the middle is where I'll be cutting my knitting. All of the ends are just a hot mess in the middle, and I will be just cutting those away and not worrying about them, as Alice Darmore says. So the reason it's so bunchy to the front is that there's shaping here. And once I cut this steek open, this is going to open up. It's going to do this, and it will be a V-neck. So it does look bunchy right now, but fear not, it won't always look that way. And when I cut it open, it will open like this. So instead of the steek sitting this way, they will open, and I'll have that V-neck sitting right here. So that is my Seaglass cardigan. I'm really happy with the fabric I'm getting, and I think that is due in large part to this beautiful yarn, which I'm a big fan of. And all of the yarns I'm using are a rustic wool. Some of them are a bit more skinny. Most of them are sport weight. Some of them are leaning more towards a fingering weight. I think when you look at the sweater, that is not obvious. And also, I have a feeling that they will bloom a bit when I block this thing. But stay tuned. I'll let you know how I get on. That's the Seaglass cardigan. Now, the last project that I have to share with you is another birthday present. I was surprised and delighted by a good friend of mine who sent me my very own 3-month curated sock collection. This was a complete shock, came out of nowhere. I was delighted and surprised by the idea of it. And so what she's doing is for 3 months, starting in January and going for the next couple of months, she is sending me a pattern in Ravelry. So I received the pattern for this pair of socks that I'm going to be showing you soon in my Ravelry inbox. And then she sent me yarn to make these socks. How delightful. Not only is she like, it's a surprise that whatever pattern she chooses is the pattern I'm getting. So that's very fun. She knows me very well. And so I'm sure she'll be picking patterns that I will enjoy knitting or am interested in, or have probably sent to her in Ravelry saying, aren't these cool? Or have you seen these? So then she sent me yarn, and this yarn is from a local to me yarn store. It came from Statement Junkie, again, a yarn store in Sherwood Park, which takes me about half an hour to drive there, give or take. Just enough time to enjoy a lovely coffee and then shop for some yarn. So these are the yarns that she sent me. These are both Mondim. So Rostazaria Mondim. This is a Portuguese yarn. It's 100% wool, but it's very hard wearing. And do you know what I love is that the colors she chose. Now this is the yarn that the pattern that I'll be showing you was originally knit in. So that's fun. She chose colors that I like, but I would not have picked these colors probably in a million years. I like them. I like blues and greens. I love these blues. I like purples, but I just would not have picked these two colors to go together. And yet she knows me so well that she picked colors that I like. And I cast these socks on last night while I was watching the Edmonton Oilers play hockey. Now, having said that, I don't always watch the Edmonton Oilers play hockey, but there was a high probability of fights at the game last night, and so I was watching. Spoiler alert, there were no big fights. The pattern that I was knitting is called the Pressed Flowers Socks. It's a pattern by Savory Knitting, I believe. And I'll show you a picture of the sock pattern right here, and then I'll show you how I'm doing. Again, I pulled out my little 9-inch circular needle and I got started. Now this is not color work in the way that we often think about color work. This is actually mosaic knitting, which means you're really only knitting with one color at a time. But I'm finding that the 9-inch circular is helping me keep the floats and manage the yarn well. So I'm enjoying using those. The ones I'm using are little, oh, I have them. I have the package right here. I will show you. They're Chowdu twists in a 2.5 millimeter size. This set comes with a set of 2-inch needles and a set of 3-inch needles, and then a couple of different lengths of cord. So what I have done is I'm using one 2-inch needle and one 3-inch needle. So the 3-inch needle goes in my right hand where I'm doing most of the work. The 2-inch goes on the other side. And then I'm using, let me see, I must be using the 5-inch cord. So my needles are about 10 inches around. And I've been working on these beautiful socks. What a delight. Like it was such a surprise to get this package in the mail and a pattern to work on. And to know that in the next couple of months, I also have a couple more packages coming my way. I love the colors. The contrast is so good. And this, I'll be honest with you, this yarn I would not have picked as a contrast color yarn. I don't know why. Apparently I was not informed, but it's beautiful. And the way that it's sort of knitting up as like a almost watercolory effect, it's amazing. I'm really, really enjoying knitting these. I really like the yarn, which I already knew. I've used Mondim before and really enjoyed it. And so I'm just having a ball knitting these socks. So if you'd like to join me and knit some pressed flower socks, I'll put the link in the show notes below to the pattern. And I'll let you know what my next month's socks are for my own curated sock club. So thank you very, very much, Terry. I'll name drop you here, for the thoughtful gift. What a great idea. I may be using this in the future. It's perfect. I love it. So that is all the things that I've been working on lately. I've got a bit of a challenge in my Seaglass cardigan. The knitting part is fun. It's just some of the little details of the yarn, like yarn management, are what's going to be the challenge for that one. The steeking I'm not worried about. I have done before and I will do again, as I said. So I'm not worried about that, but it's just some of the little yarn management, particularly the color work in the sleeves. So if you have thoughts, let me know in the show notes below. Or if you've knit this sweater, let me know in the show notes below. What did you do with the color work? All your ends in the sleeves. Let me know. I would love to hear from you. But in the next couple of weeks, I hope you find time to do some things you like to do, like maybe challenge yourself to knit a sweater in a weight of yarn that you weren't expecting, or maybe watch a hockey game. Not necessarily for the fights, but if that interests you or increases the entertainment value for you, amazing. Maybe you'll check out some Ukrainian dancing. I would absolutely recommend you give it a try. Not necessarily the dancing, but watching it. It's lots of fun. It's amazing. And I'm really proud of my daughter for having her first performance with this group. So whatever it is you do in the next couple of weeks, I hope you find time to do the things you enjoy. I know I plan on knitting a lot. I'll see you soon. Bye.